Hey, King Bullet here. So, it seems like I'm the only one who hasn't really talked about this yet. The extra pages for Attack on Titan's final chapter. The ones that will be shown in the final volume of Attack on Titan. Before the final chapter, I was probably one of the biggest Attack on Titan fans. You know what, I still kind of am, I think. Since I have so much insight, it's insane. I have all of the volumes, I've read through all of the guidebooks, data books, and I've debated dozens of people on Attack on Titan. So I have a lot of insight into how people interpreted the story as a whole, what people think of the story, etc. I'm assuming you've seen some of my analysis videos on Attack on Titan, especially after the final chapter. I was told, perhaps I need to do a retrospective on this, and I probably will one day, maybe when the anime returns. And I was told maybe over time I would learn to kind of understand and like the ending more. And I'm gonna be honest with you, that hasn't really happened. In fact, the contrary. I think my dislike for it has grown probably even more, if I'm being honest. So we can get into this now. We can talk about those extra pages for the final volume. Now, something a lot of people don't really understand is that I am actually allowed to criticize the author of this work, Isayama himself, since essentially he is creating a product, and I am the consumer of that product. I am actually directly paying for his product, even if a product was free. As the consumer, I am allowed to criticize. I don't know why anything would be exempt from criticism, as long as I'm doing it in a respectful way. Another thing is, of course, this is my interpretation, therefore subjective. However, you have to understand this. Literally, most things are subjective. However, I can put down an interpretation that is more valid than another interpretation. I just want people to understand that too. If that wasn't the case, we literally wouldn't be able to debate. Let's talk about the first page of these additional pages. We get more insight into this brief exchange between Mikasa and Ymir, and we get a ton of dialogue from Mikasa. Mikasa finally realizing that it was Ymir who was causing Mikasa to have all of these headaches, and all of these things happening to her mind was because of her. So does that mean that dream she had with her living with Eren happened because of Ymir, and she was the one projecting that? Possibly. There's not really a lot of closure on that. Mikasa then thanks Ymir for bringing her children into this world and talking about how this love between her and King Fritz must have felt like a never-ending nightmare. All the lives that were taken can never be regained. And this is when we see, I think, this alternate possibility where rather than saving King Fritz, she didn't save him and rather rushed her children. But the fact that she brought her children into this world is the reason that they all stand here today. Mikasa then says goodbye to Ymir, goodbye forever. What seems to be irritating here is, it's cool that Mikasa was fleshed out a bit here, she got dialogue, it's interesting for her development, of course. However, it was all really last minute. There wasn't really many parallels between Mikasa and Ymir prior to the final two chapters, and it seemed really rushed. I felt like Isayama probably could have set them up better. For example, he could have done a lot more foreshadowing, since, you know, that's what he's known for. Like, there was definitely more foreshadowing and paralleling between even Historia and Ymir. For example, even in Ymir's introduction, it was stated that Historia wanted to be like Krista, aka Ymir, even with the whole pregnancy and maternity theme. Now we can move on to the more controversial stuff. There's a panel of what seems like Mikasa, her child, and surprisingly Jean. I'm assuming my boy Jean finally got laid, and I'm happy for him, because he's one of my favourite characters in Attack on Titan. I think he's one of the better ones, and if anybody deserved Mikasa, it was probably him. You know, she was his dream girl, when he had literally never seen her in his life. He had even drawn her, apparently. Talk about destiny, right? It is made quite apparent throughout the series he has a crush on Mikasa, and that he cares about her deeply. We literally know this, since after Eren's called her a slave, and Mikasa seems upset, he instantly asks what Eren said, and seems angered by this. You can argue even thematically it makes sense, since Jean actually defends Mikasa when she talks about inheriting Eren's attack Titan and founding Titan. Jean answers that they don't know enough about the Ackerman biology, and if it's even possible at all, and if it's even possible for Ackerman to even inherit Titans. This scene is a parallel to many other scenes, where a person saves the person they love by bringing up like an alternate possibility, usually mentally, although Jean has actually saved Mikasa physically as well. So Mikasa and Jean are now apparently canon. I know there's a lot of Eren x Mikasa shippers who are really upset about this, and trust me when I say this, I really do feel bad for you. I can relate because the same way that ship sunk, my entire theory sunk, but what I really find annoying is in fact that this entire series that had so many cool themes, like revenge, freedom, discrimination, predeterminism, all dwindled down to ships really, and who ended up with who. The funniest thing is that love was apparently meant to be a major theme in the final chapter. I mean, it had been talked about in the past. There was this really cool idea with predeterminism between slave and master, and kind of escaping that. Love also related into the surpassing the father narrative and theme, but that didn't really go anywhere, I think. The issue was that these themes didn't really have any closure, unfortunately, and the ending was more so focused on who ended up with who, regardless of all of these themes. I don't know about you guys, but for me, this was very underwhelming. Well, I guess Mikasa did kind of move on, but there's a sense of irony here. I feel like Eren was really badly cucked here, and the fact that he didn't really accomplish much makes it like 10 times worse. That's why I can't take this whole situation seriously, and rather to me it seems really satirical. And I know it felt like that for a lot of people. One thing I would like to criticize is, okay, Mikasa was meant to move away from Eren, so it makes sense that she would move on and find someone else. However, did she really move on? She's still visiting Eren's grave, and she still has that scarf, so I'm not quite sure about that, and she seems upset for the most part. I feel like this does kind of defeat the whole purpose of her accomplishing something that Ymir couldn't, escaping the curse of love, and very unfortunately, it's hard to argue that Mikasa has done this. Even contradicting what Isayama wanted, he wanted those two characters to move away from each other and show that Mikasa wasn't dependent of him. So they do another time skip where we see a really old Mikasa. So once again she visits that large tree with Eren's grave. This younger man kind of places her hand out forward. This is possibly her descendant, we're not quite sure. However, in Mikasa's hand is a rose or some sort of flower, kind of implying that she still loves Eren. And I feel like it's implied that she's buried next to Eren, so it kind of supports the whole idea that she didn't really move away from him. Now moving on to the most controversial stuff. They do another time skip. It seems like possibly 100 years into the future, I can't say for sure, but now Paradise Island has like these really large buildings and it's starting to resemble modern day more so now. However, these buildings are getting like rapid carpet bombed by these planes, and it seems like all of the infrastructure is starting to collapse now. And then once again they do another time skip, showing that the entire island has been destroyed, presumably. So it seems like the rest of the world really did destroy the island. Now if you recall, that's exactly what I said in my original analysis of the final chapter. A lot of people doubted me, but I told them that all of the evidence suggested that they would be destroyed because they are massively disadvantaged. So that land belonging to the 20% that Eren didn't kill was still all more technologically advanced than Paradise Island, and in population completely outnumbered Paradise Island still. And getting over the fact that Eren actually destroyed 80% of the world's population is a very difficult thing. It does seem like in the lifetime of Armin and the others that they did manage to preserve peace, but this was obviously short-lived. So I suppose Eren did protect his friends to the very end, I suppose. And a lot of people do like to argue that Eren achieved his goal because that's all he cared about. That is not true. He was willing to sacrifice his friends. He stated when in Paths that if his friends stood in his way, that he was willing to kill them, meaning that there was a more important goal. That is literally more important than all of his friends. It was made very apparent that what he valued more was his people collectively, the island, not just the island. He states that he didn't want to leave the fate of his island to chance, when that's exactly what his plan entailed. Because of it, and because he did, the island was destroyed. For some reason, people think this is a lie, when even narratively this is reinforced. So thematically speaking, there's a theme called Sins of a Father, something Isayama has directly addressed within guidebooks. In the Uprising arc, Eren realizes that his predecessors, his father in particular, had forced roles on him, and these roles kind of bounded him and made him unfree. There was this endless cycle where the father would pass their roles and burdens onto their child, and Eren wanted to break that, so he could forge his own fate. However, in the end he really couldn't, and he doomed the fate of the future and the children of Paradise to destruction. Eren's action directly influenced that and decided that for them. So he himself definitely understood the task at hand. He understood the importance of the future. This was a main deterrent to why Eren completely despised Zeke's euthanization plan, because he wanted his people to have children, to have a future. And he got emotional about it. He called Zeke's plan sick. If he only cared about his friends and not the future, then he really should not have been opposed to Zeke's plan, since his friends do still get a chance to live out their lives. This then relates into another theme called surpassing the father. So essentially it had become a narrative point that Eren had to surpass his own father and his father before him. However, Eren couldn't do this. He couldn't surpass his father. He wasn't even a father himself, but essentially the children are meant to represent the future of the island, yet he still burdened them. A lot of people might say, well, surely this is like the irony within it, right? That he was destined to repeat the mistakes of the past. However, this has been massively contradicted. It was a part of Eren's character development in the Uprising arc to realize that he was bounded by the mistakes of the past. But he had also realized through the actions of Historia that he could make his own future, that he could change this. And it states directly that he did. He unfreed himself from his shackles. He unburdened himself, shattered fate, allowing himself to forge a new one. So because of the final chapter and these additional pages and the outcome, this directly shows that Eren's character did actually regress, which is considered a bad thing in this case, since Eren's character does consistently follow an archetype that allows his character to progress and develop and learn from his mistakes. So ultimately, this proves that Eren didn't achieve what he wanted to, and was ultimately cucked. back to talking about the additional pages, then once again for the final time, doing another time skip. And this is probably a large time skip, since that tree that Eren is buried next to has grown by an astronomical amount. Like, how long would it take for a tree to grow that tall? It looks like a mountain. Probably at least 100 years, right? I mean, look at that behemoth. It literally dwarfs most other trees near it, and those trees themselves look pretty large, considering you can see even smaller trees next to them. Anyway, it seems like a character who resembles Mikasa, I would like to say. It might be her descendant, I'm not too sure, I can't say for sure. Kind of stumbles upon this tree, and close up, this tree does really resemble that tree that Ymir fell into all those years ago. So what do I think about this? Let me get this right. Eren went from crybaby to Chad to bird to a tree? Anyway, in all seriousness, it seems to me that they're trying to set up like a spin-off or a continuation. That might not be the case, but there seems to be a lot of emphasis on this new character. Hopefully they don't do like a Boruto type spin-off. Like, I've seen those memes, those Eren Next Generation memes. Hopefully they don't do that. Like, surely this ending is cringe enough. Also, not forgetting this, by the way, this is the final page addressed to the readers of Attack on Titan, where literally the editorial department of the magazine that published Attack on Titan literally says, "Our battle is only getting started." So is this implying a spin-off or a continuation? Maybe? But I don't think Isayama wants to be involved in this. This might be a thing where they get another writer to continue their story, but hopefully not. There's also that meta commentary from Isayama, the one he does for school casts, in which he kind of makes himself like self-aware. It is a little bit cringe, but at the same time it shows us that he was aware of the different factions and different groups of people in the fandom who had different interpretations and wanted different endings. Mikasa was pro-alliance, I'm assuming Armin was pro-Jaegerist, and Eren just wanted to enjoy the series as a whole. Which I wanted to, but I feel like it's really difficult with the ending, plus these additional pages, and I know a lot of people feel like that. Anyway, Armin makes a point that there's a lot of things weren't addressed, and that's the issue. And it's not even about it being open-ended. The issue is that a lot of themes weren't really tied together. This is all quite interesting because I have good reason to believe Isayama didn't actually want this ending, or he was really conflicted at the very least. We know all of this is true, because in June, there will be an interview released where Isayama talks about the ending, and some of it has actually been leaked. He talks about the interaction between Armin and Eren. He wanted Armin to be like an accomplice to Eren, that's why he was fine with his genocide. However, Isayama is aware this makes Armin seem as if he's fine with genocide as long as it's for him and his friends. However, that's not what Isayama intended. I assume what Isayama meant was that he wanted to somewhat unburden Eren and let Armin shoulder some of the responsibility of killing this many people. Hence, Isayama stated that he wanted this moment to bring them closer, yet he thinks he struggled to do this. Now, I have a massive issue with this, because Isayama in the past has stated, in guidebooks, that Armin is a character who literally sacrificed anything, even his own humanity, to not only defeat the Titans, but to save all of humanity. It even states that he can't even see himself being best friends with Eren forever because of this, meaning their friendship isn't enough to justify genocide at all. And if you think about it, this is really consistent with Armin's development. He makes this very apparent, as he's somebody who precedes Erwin, who had a similar goal. Hence, Eren thinks that Armin will be the one to save humanity. And even in this scan here, it states it's a part of Armin's growth. Armin and Mikasa were both written to move away from Eren at the end, but they really couldn't. So at the end of his interview, Isayama makes it quite apparent that he wasn't happy with his writing in this chapter. Hence, I think Isayama was forced to have an ending opposite to his ideal ending. Now, this might not be too far-fetched, since there's like another interview with Kawabuto, and he states to avoid spoilers in the final episode, there was also an option to have an ending that was the opposite of that. And this is in response to the final chapter, meaning there were other possibilities, some even being the opposite of this ending. So in conclusion, I feel like I'm in a situation where all of this drama and this ending has actually made the story possibly more interesting and more controversial, so there's more to talk about, I suppose. And I do enjoy talking about this, but I am disappointed in the ending, don't get that wrong. If you do want to see more Attack on Titan related content or more analysis on other shows, you know what to do, subscribe, because the videos do take a while to make, especially the research part, as you can imagine. And also like the video, please. If you want to see more specialized content, then let me know in the comment section what kind of stuff you do want to see. Other than that, thank you for watching this entire video, hopefully, and I'll see you later. Peace out.